All right, so now we're going to jump into part two, which is visual thinking. I find that most people are very creative and they do tend to be visual thinkers. So it really creates that foundation of being creative and solving some of the most complex problems. And as we know, almost every business, every project is solving a very specific problem. So it's a way to organize our thoughts, improve your ability to think and communicate, and have everything on the wall so that everybody has the same picture, which I think is very, very important. Um, One of the fun other side of visual thinking is artwork. And if you haven't actually seen it, your toughest business problem solved visually is Gaping Void. And he is an agile coach who creates these amazing images, and more companies are actually using these visual images to help create a culture and create certain messages of values and things that they believe in, because it's very important that your team knows what you stand for, what the business stands for, what your team stands for, because every team can be a little bit different. And I've actually used some of these posters as gifts. So I highly go to Gaping Void and check it out. You're going to love it. Really, really great stuff. And every single picture has a story, a business story that goes with it. So not only is it fun, but you also learn a lot while you're looking at that. So that's just a little different kind of visual thinking that I wanted to introduce you to. So of course, stickies, if you are working in the agile world, you use a lot of stickies, but I think stickies are just so important to get those ideas out of your head onto the wall. Here's one of the biggest tricks that you should keep in mind is that when you are using a sticky, only one thought per sticky. Do not put bullet points on a sticky, because if you need to break them up and move them around, you won't be able to do that. So just one thought per sticky. And visual thinking, you can collect thoughts, you can organize them, you can synthesize them, you can come up with relationships and concepts and experiments and models and insights. And so this is why I think it's so much fun, but it's really that idea of shared language. So if I put this up and we're talking about this, does this mean the same thing to everybody? And that in itself is going to eliminate a lot of anxiety and people understanding what needs to be done. I actually love using stickies as my form for doing a WSB, a work breakdown structure. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but here again is a story map, whether you're working more on an agile side or you're working more on a waterfall side. The waterfall side will be your WBS, and the other one will be more of your story map. But what I like to say is, as a project manager, to be really effective, number one, set the purpose, put it in context, because purpose is one of those things that really motivate people. And I will talk a little bit later about Daniel Pink, but it's purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And I think that by doing some of the self-assessments that we talked about early is going to help you understand who that person is and where they want to have mastery. And then the autonomy is let them do it any way that they want to do it. So it's first like, put it in context. Every single project, visually, have a giant driving statement and put it in context. Because a lot of times as a project manager, we'll get the charter and it'll be very, very complex. And very often that charter is not shared with your project team. So I like to distill some of the key outcomes that charter is looking for and create a driving statement so that everybody's on the same page. Everybody understands the context. Next thing is kind of like tune the team. And that's like the last segment when we talked a lot about personality assessments. That's when you really find out who your team is, what they do well, what they like to do, and all that type of stuff. That can be so important for tuning the team. The next one, as I say, like map it out. So everybody who's involved, and including your stakeholders, I highly recommend that you do one big collaborative meeting where you map out all the work to need to be done, whether that's in a work breakdown structure or whether that's in a story map. It's just really important, again, to get this out of your head and onto the wall. And this is your opportunity as well to let the team ask any clarifying questions of yourself or any of the stakeholders so that they clearly understand the definition of done. Because the other thing that you can do to empower your team is make sure they understand the expectations. Because the clearer the expectations are, again, that's going to reduce the amount of anxiety. And so if you can help them be very clear, they are going to really appreciate it. So then, obviously, in the Agile world, we take things from the storyboard and we put it on the task board and break it into tasks, move it across the board. What I love about this is, again, it's very visual. As a project manager, now you are more managing the process as opposed to actually managing all the details, letting people do it themselves. And there's one other little element about this type of task board, or even whether you want to use it electronically, possibly Trello or a certain other agile type platforms that can help you manage your projects, is that celebrating all the little successes. So every time you have your stand-up meeting and you hit that done, you celebrate that done. And what that's going to do, as many of you know, that's going to release a little bit of dopamine, and someone's going to say, "Ooh, that feels really good. I want to do it again." And they keep doing it and keep doing it. And that's one of the ways that we can actually increase velocity of the amount of stuff that gets done and moved across the task board. But I will talk quite a bit about celebration. Celebration is so important, especially, as I said, when people are a little depressed, they're anxious, and they don't, give them those little wins. Those wins really motivate people to keep moving. So again, like in your stand-up meetings, celebrate those wins. And even if you're more waterfall, just make sure that everybody celebrates all their wins, and that you do have some sort of a visual progress that you can keep an eye on, and everybody can know what other people are doing too. Because one of the nice things about having a visual board like this is you can cut down on a lot of the blah, 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 and actually people can see where people are struggling, if they're not getting across, how they can help. And then you can go back and look at your team matrix and find out who might be the best person to help you. So again, it's just really this collaborative progress tracking and transparent communication that alleviates a lot of stress as well. The next thing that I absolutely love is mind mapping. So most of you, I'm sure, are aware of how mind mapping works. You put an idea in the middle, and then you do all these ideas off in different directions. And interestingly enough, this method of mind mapping actually helps people understand things better. So if you have like a solution or a problem you want to find a solution for, you can mind map it out and really probably start coming up with some really interesting concepts and ideas that you might not otherwise have had. Now, when I go back to talking about the team, this is another one of my little tricks that I use with teams, especially under the visual thinking piece. And this is called personal maps. Personal maps comes from Jürgen Apollo, who did Management 3.0. So it's really about building your business like a community, not just what your team can do for you, but what can you do for them. And the more you can help them get rid of some of the stuff that's in their way, the faster they'll be able to get into flow. And you want to encourage them to be in flow as much as possible. One of the fun things that I used to do, talking about getting people in flow and also understanding a little bit more about who they were, is at the beginning of every stand-up, I would have one person from the team find the funniest 2 to 3 minutes that they could on YouTube, and we would start our meetings laughing. So laughing and positivity is very important for getting people into flow. What they didn't understand when we're talking about mastery is also it gave me a lot of insights into who they were. So here's how the personal map works. For every single person on my team, I do a map. I put them in the middle, and then I either have them fill it out as a group, and then we circulate it and other people can read it. But what I will do is I will start documenting all the different things I know about that person. So usually I will start up at the top and I'll put 5 spots, and those are your top 5 strengths. At the bottom, I usually put 10 spots, and those are for your motivational movers. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a lot of time to get into that, but it's all about intrinsic motivation and what motivates you most to what motivates you least. And once you have those insights into your people as well, it will also help you get to know them better, serve them better, and create rewards that are in alignment with what motivates them. Yeah, so you might have your family, your vacations, where they've traveled, where they went to school, all these different types of things that you want to know about everybody on your team. You can also do it with your stakeholders, but it's just a really nice, fast, visual way. And every time you kind of like learn something new about that person, put on another little note on your mind map. Or if you're going to be meeting with that person, literally, it just takes a second to look at the map, understand who they are, and that will again make those conversations so much more impactful. And people are people. They want to be heard. They want to grow. They want to they want to be as outrageously themselves as they can be. So this is how I use personal maps. Another really interesting mapping tool that I found is this idea of dialogue mapping. And what's interesting about dialogue mapping, especially as project managers, I think sometimes we have to have a lot of meetings and there's a lot of minutes and there's a lot of decisions. So this is a fabulous way to document and have a conversation about a very important decision. So what's that one thing that you need to decide on? And then every node becomes an idea, a pro, a con, and then that might lead to another question. And then, you put something up and you say, oh, is this a pro or is this a con? Is this an idea or is this something that like a plus, a minus, an idea, a question? And the interesting thing at the end of your meeting, when you come up with that final decision, you can now track all the conversations, all the dialogue that went to getting to that final decision. And what's really fun is, again, you have a 1-page artifact that you can use throughout the whole organization. And what I really love about it is, unlike often in minutes, it's like so and so and so and so, and now you're starting to attach either negative or positive or irrelevant things to different people that aren't relevant to the decision that was actually made. This gives you one simple, fun artifact that everybody can read and understand how you got to that decision. And I just find it a lot more effective than minutes at a really intense meeting. The other types of visual tools that I love are the canvases, the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas. I even have a team canvas that I can share with you. But like just, mapping out on a canvas, painting a picture. And the other cool thing about canvases is once you actually have your initial idea mapped out, this is when you really can have some fun prototyping your business idea and saying, well, what if? But we'll get into that a little bit deeper into section number 3, which is design thinking.